That'll Be the Day was Buddy Holly's first big hit, and is one of the records that helped define the sound of rock and roll. But Decca Records hated the song and didn't want to release it. I'm JP McDermott for West Coast Ramble, and this is part 2 of the true tale of Buddy Holly's That'll Be the Day. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Discouraged but determined, Buddy and J.I. returned to Lubbock and went into an intense period of rehearsing and gigging, often just as a duo with guitar and drums. They booked some studio time in town and recorded some very rough demos of a bunch of covers they'd been playing at the Lubbock Youth Center. Buddy and J.I. were convinced that That'll Be the Day could be a hit, and if Decca wouldn't put it out, somebody would. It was around this time, late 1956, that Buddy reestablished contact with Norman Petty, a producer and engineer with his own studio in Clovis, New Mexico, a bit over 90 miles from Lubbock. Petty was proving that he had a knack for recording rock and roll with guys from West Texas. Roy Orbison had recorded the first version of Ooby Dooby there, and soon after releasing it on a small local label was at Sun Records. Buddy Knox had recorded Party Doll in Clovis and landed a contract with the Roulette label. Norman Petty could capture the right sounds and had the connections in the music business that could get those sounds pressed. So Norman Petty seemed like Buddy's best chance. Buddy figured he could record a demo version of That'll Be the Day in Clovis and then see if Petty could use his connections and that demo to get a new record contract. Decca did let Buddy's contract lapse in January 1957, and Buddy got ready to re-record That'll Be the Day. The group that assembled to record on February 24, 1957 included only Buddy and J.I. from the July session. Sonny Curtis had left the group to tour with Slim Whitman. Don Guest still didn't have a bass. Buddy called up Larry Wellborn, who he'd worked with before, and who actually had a bass. He also recruited Nicky Sullivan, a good local guitarist and singer, and who, unknown to both of them, was Buddy's third cousin. As Elvis Presley was using the Jordanaires on his records by this point, Buddy wanted backing vocals and pulled in Gary and Ramona Tollett to sing. The session got started about 9 o'clock that evening. Norman Petty liked to record at night as the noise from the trucks rumbling down the main road was less frequent, and his father's auto repair shop next door was closed for the day, so there was less banging to contend with. They spent several hours working on Looking for Someone to Love, a song Buddy had written just a day or two before. He'd had some trouble finishing the tune. In fact, it was only completed during the drive to the studio when Buddy's brother Larry suggested the great fourth verse based on something Buddy's fun-loving mother used to say. Drunk man, streetcar, foot slip, there you are, I'm looking for someone to love. The mood in the studio was loose and fun, in stark contrast to the tightly scheduled Nashville sessions. With everyone all warmed up from working through Looking for Someone to Love, with all the mic placements set, That'll Be the Day took only about 3 or 4 takes to finish up. By 3 o'clock that morning, they knew they had recorded something special. This was a much better record than what they'd done at Owen Bradley's studio. Looking back at the two versions, you have to admit that Decca was probably right in this particular case. What were the differences between a hit and a miss? What's different between the Nashville and Clovis versions? Tune in to part 3 and I'll break it all down.